What up, y'all? We made it. We made it. Just a couple important things before we start. I got a lot going on, real life stuff right now. So it's possible I might got to stop and take care of some business. But this information has been on my mind. I wanted to go ahead and talk about it. I know that there's many in the community that might feel similarly. So we're making this video for a lot of reasons, right? We're making this video for a lot of reasons. Reaching out to individuals again who might feel similarly. Let you know you're not alone in that, and that's fine, right? That's fine. We're all gonna just keep moving forward, regardless of what's going on. Again, another point that we want to be mindful of, I should say, is that we're going to talk about some things that might be triggering. We're going to talk about some things that might be triggering. We don't want to injure anybody's mental health, right? We recognize that that's very important. So we don't want to send anybody spiraling. So I'm just going to let you know right off the bat, we're going to be talking about some controversial things. We might be talking about sexual assault, depression, suicide, substance abuse, okay, and some other things. We're not going to go into detail about such things, but we are going to perhaps touch on those in other topics. So again, just a little warning out there. We don't want to trigger anybody, send anybody spiraling. Your mental health is important. So if these are things that might be too much for you to handle right now at this time, please click off the video. Again, go do something else. Keep your peace. That stuff is very, very important. So essentially what we're touching on today is what seems to be a theme taking place in Marvel Strike Force. Okay, so we recognize it is indeed the month of October, right? It's fall, it's Halloween season. You're going to have some of those darker themes. You're going to have some of those supernatural things. That's just par for the course. That's going to happen, right? It's understandable. We have Zombie Kestrel coming out at some point this month. Zombie character comes out every month for the past how many years? We recognize that's going to happen. That's not necessarily what we're talking about today. What we're talking about is what seems to be, again, a theme that continues to peak up and crop up within Marvel Strike Force. The characters seem to have like this demonic backdrop to them, this demonic underpinning, and that's just unsettling to me. And I know that there's perhaps some of you also out there in the community that it's also unsettling for. Again, I'm not asking Scopely, I'm not asking Marvel Strike Force to change what they're doing. Their game, they do what they want. But I just noticed that it seems to be a bit much in a compressed time period. And maybe you're feeling that as well. Because I remember when they announced the Age of Annihilus, I was super excited, right? I was super excited. And Annihilus is such an interesting character, and he had this giant event, the Annihilation event. Perhaps you got a chance to look at some of that information, and I really saw the potential. And I was imagining like what characters could come to the game. We got some of that, right? We got Quasar, we got Blastar. Both of those are definitely tied to Annihilus and the Annihilation event. The Fantastic Four MCU. We know there's a movie involved, and it's great timing again for linking them with Annihilus. They're a great team. They're strong. They're awesome. We're having a lot of fun. I'm having a lot of fun with those characters as well. Just a little side point: the Guardians of the Galaxy, right? If you're familiar with that movie in the MCU, the Guardians of the Galaxy, that movie, the skeleton actually of that movie is based in part on the Annihilation storyline. Obviously, there were some adaptations to bring it to the MCU, but that storyline actually comes from the Annihilation event in Marvel Comics. All right, so I guarantee we would not have that movie without the Annihilation event. That put all these cosmic type, not even necessarily cosmic characters like Sentry, Blue Marvel, right? I understand everybody can't be Superman, but just those space faring, those cosmic style characters that really brought them to the fore and made them candidates to make it into the MCU. For example, the what's his name? Drax the Destroyer. So Drax the Destroyer in that movie wants revenge on Ronan for Ronan killing his family. In reality, in the MCU, it's Thanos. So Thanos is mistreating, he's beating up on Moondragon, essentially, who is Drax's father in the comic. And as any dad, he's not gonna let a guy be putting hands on his daughter. He goes after Thanos. He's not strong enough, right? But that's part of the theme that carries throughout that. He's not strong enough, and he finds a way to get enough strength, enough power to defeat Thanos, who has allied himself with Annihilus at the end of that storyline. So all that's in there, right? We even have, you can go look in the roster of Marvel Strike Force right now. There is Star-Lord Annihilation, right? He's part of the Nowhere team, Star-Lord Annihilation. So he's in the game right now, right? He's an older character. But again, that storyline, there's so much there, right? We learned about the Heralds of Galactus. So many of us are perhaps familiar with the Silver Surfer, right? He's a Herald of Galactus, but there's others. And so there's multiple Heralds, good and bad, that were part of that event. Again, we talked about the Kree with Ronan, Captain Marvel, and other Kree heroes, the Shi'ar Empire. So at the end, again, of Guardians of the Galaxy, they're on Xandar. So Xandar is the home of the Nova Corps. So we have one Nova in this game. I'm hoping that there's yet more Nova or something like that to come, because he was an integral part of the Annihilation storyline. And Annihilus is no joke. They grabbed Galactus, made him into like a Death Star super weapon, a battery for their Death Star super weapon, and were destroying planets. Annihilus was so consumed with these Heralds of Galactus that he made his own. He made his own negative zone version using this thing he called the Essence. This is all coming in line with other announcements that have been made in the Marvel community. So there's this Marvel game called Marvel Cosmic Invasion that's coming. It's coming out on computers and stuff like that. A little side-scrolling beat 'em up, old school version. The timeline of that was in line with what we had here, our Marvel Strike Force with the Age of Annihilus. And there's a new comic series that's happening right now called Imperial that was also announced at that time. And again, it has to do with that cosmic, that spacefaring community. So we're getting deep into like the Shi'ar Empire. So we're getting deep into the Imperial Guard. And then they have these things called Electrons, some other type of fighting force. And then they have their special forces of the Shi'ar that they're kind of explaining. You got World War Hulk and the Hulk family. So you got him, She-Hulk, Scar. They're going back to Sakaar to deal with problems that are going on there. Wakanda has a galactic empire. The Inhumans are back. There's the Nova, right? That Nova problem that started with Annihilation. It never really got solved. And so they're diving into that now. There's so much. This is all happening right now. The timing was the same as Marvel Strike Force. So I was anticipating more of that stuff, more of those characters. But instead, what we are seeing to be getting is a lot of the supernatural and the demonic. And that troubles me, right? I'm not telling Marvel Strike Force what to do. It's their game. They're going to make their game and do what they want. It's fine, right? It's just, again, we have a lot of characters that are kind of in this time compression that are they make me feel uneasy. And I know that's the same for some of you guys. So we're just going to kind of go over a little bit of the teams, the characters that have come out in the last few months, and just kind of talk about what's going on and explain, maybe at least I'll just tell you why Zero Cool Gamer said, "Hey man, I'll tell him." ZKG said, "I'll say it." Oh, well, maybe explain. Appreciate you guys for tuning in this morning. Appreciate everybody. But just kind of explain like what's going on, the feeling, and why. And again, we're going to start getting into some of those triggering topics. So once again, we might be saying things like sexual assault. We might be talking about violence. We're going to be talking about, obviously, these characters are demons. So if that's something that's triggering depression, suicide, we're going to be discussing some of those themes, not in graphic or great detail, but I just want you to know we are going to be talking about some of that stuff coming up here. So if that's something that is too troubling for your mental health, we don't want to be sending people spiraling today. Go ahead and click off the video. Keep your peace, because that's important. Your health of mind and body is important. So let me see if I can bring up my game here. I'll be looking up the baby account, because I said it's been busy, you guys, and I got a lot going on in real life right now. Phone might ring, might have to cut it short. I hope not, but we will see what we can do. All right. So as we go into the game here, let's just look at a couple of the characters and things that have come to the game in recent time. So we'll just go up here to squads, and we got the most recent team, which is the Brimstone team. So who are the characters that are in there? Well, probably the most powerful character in that team is Damon Hellstrom. Okay. This team's going to be awesome, by the way. This team's going to be awesome. They are going to be used in Battle World. They're a strong Alliance War team. This character by himself is very, very powerful. But who is Damon Hellstrom? Who is Damon Hellstrom? So we look at the information here. It says that Damon Hellstrom is a half human, half demon, wielding his, I'm not sure what that word is, Nethanarium trident to channel soul fire to burn away his enemies' buffs and strip away their defenses. And so Zero Cool Gamers chiming in. Hey man, he says, I love me. He's like, the dude is strong. The dude is strong. This is going to be a meta-defining character. This team is going to be ridiculous. Right at the end of the year, beginning of the year-ish, last cycle, we got Liberty. We got the Absolute A-Force. They're strong, right? Those are some strong war teams. They're usable in other game modes. But who is this individual, right? Who is Damon? Well, it says he's half human, half demon. Well, what's his parentage? What's his lineage? Who's his parents? Who's his father? Well, if you don't know, Damon Hellstrom's father is Satan the devil. And Marvel makes no bones about that. You can go ahead and look it up. It'll say right there on the cover, Damon Hellstrom comic, son of Satan. Okay. So remember, we were talking about last year, there was a lot of discussion with Mephisto, Crimson Gear, demonic gear. And there was some pushback in the community. People said, well, Gideon, it's okay. Why are you getting so upset? It's not Satan. He's not Satan, Gideon. That's what we said. Well, what do we got now? We have Damon Hellstrom, the son of Satan. Now, I understand the storyline, right? So as you see, he's listed as a hero, not a villain. So the storyline is kind of along the lines of, right, you can't control your past, right? There's stuff you can't control. You can't control who your parents are. You can't control where you come from, but you make decisions about your life. You decide, right? That's the trope. That's the storyline, and that's great. I'm all for that. I'm all for that. That is a positive message. Okay. And that's the message behind this character, so to speak. But again, it's what he represents. He still has his trident or his pitchfork, right? I don't know too many demons that walk around with tridents. So he got his pitchfork. He still uses occult power, things of that nature. So it's just not for me. I'm not telling anybody else what to do. It's just not for me. It makes me uncomfortable. So I'm probably going to skip. I am going to skip this team. And that's going to cause me then to lose some traction in Battle World, which is fine. It is what it is. It's just a game. It is what it is. It's just a game. But we're just citing some of the reasons why individuals might seem a little bit uneasy. This is one for me. Okay. So let's continue. Let's continue with other characters. Well, we have Hellcat. So we have Hellcat. So again, well, who is Hellcat? Who is this character? Well, let's look at the information. Hellcat, Patricia Walker. Patricia Walker realizes her dream of becoming a superhero using her Hellcat suit and claws to slice her enemies to ribbons. Cool. No problem. All right. This character, Patricia Walker. Who is this? You know who this is? Patricia Walker, Patsy Walker. So, little backstory on this. There was a time when corporations were a little bit different, and you would have developers. You would have, in the case of comic books, you have writers and people that invent characters, and they would kind of own that property, right? That's their intellectual property. So they would make a character, and then maybe they would go from one business to another, and maybe they would be able to take their character with them. Okay. All right. So, for example, I don't know if you know who Angela is. Angela, she's the sister of Thor. So Angela actually started in a different comic, an independent comic. She was acquired and brought into the Marvel mythos. So here we have Patricia Walker, Patsy Walker. This was a character who was created kind of trying to remember. So it's kind of like the Archie comics, things like that. So this is a group that's a family friendly. You could maybe call them a Christian company that was trying to produce family friendly content. And Patsy Walker, Patricia Walker, was a uh, character inside that franchise. People move around. People come there. They get the recognition in the smaller independent company. They move around. They get a job at Marvel. They're able to bring some of their characters with them. So they bring Patricia Walker with them. So now she's just a character in the Marvel universe, right? She's just a character in the Marvel universe. They would depict her just, reading comics and things like that. So what does she do? What does she do when she gets to the Marvel universe? Well, she got to get a job. She got to get a job. So she goes to work for S.H.I.E.L.D. So she's working for S.H.I.E.L.D., learns how to fight, right? How to shoot, all that good stuff. She actually, in addition, starts training with Moondragon, trying to develop some psionic abilities. All right, so that's all happening. And while that's happening, she meets a gentleman called Damon Hellstrom. The two fall in love. They get married. So Hellcat, Patsy Walker, is the wife of Damon Hellstrom. Okay, so Damon, he's having a good time. These things are going good. And then he starts to have that mental break, right? He starts to have that dark side start to take over, right? He has that dichotomy, that good and evil. So now the bad guy of Damon is out. He's in his villain phase. He's in his villain arc, causing mayhem and destruction. Heroes got to come, and he is killed, presumably. It's comics, right? He's killed in the final conflict, okay? So how's his wife feel about that? Well, she sinks into a depression, right? She sinks into a depression, and she starts hearing voices from the comics. These voices are demonic entities that are trying to get her to commit suicide. So we're going to pause there for just a second. Okay, so mental health is extremely important. If you are in that state where perhaps your mind is not right, if you recognize that perhaps you are hearing things, seeing things that are not there, it's important to make sure you're getting your treatment. Stay in. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a doctor. I am not a medical professional. Okay. But if you know that you're not yourself, if you know that things are wrong, I'm encouraging you to go get that help. Go see a doctor. You got to get with a therapist. There's work that's involved, and we got to do that work. Okay. I'm going to show you something very quickly if I can. Let's see here. I want to show you something that I saw the other day. I might got to switch up my screens real quick. So we have this individual, Mr. Brennan McDonald. Okay. This is a podcast that I watch. It's a firefighting podcast. It's called The Weekly Scrap. And even if you're not into firefighting, okay, if you're struggling with your mental health, this is an excellent, excellent story for you to hear. Mr. Brendan McDonald, he was a wildland firefighter. Maybe there was a movie and all that a couple years back. Essentially what happened is there's this big forest fire, it's wildland fire, and something goes wrong, something changes, right? Those fires can be unpredictable. They thought it was going to go one way, it turned and went the other way, and it killed his crew. Everyone on his crew died except for him. He went into severe depression, alcoholism, tried more than once to commit suicide. Okay. And this was years ago. And you see, he's wearing firefighter uniform. He is now back to where he can serve. It took 10 years, man. It took 10 years. He's got less than a year on a job at a new department. So it's a success story, but you got to hear this. And he talks about putting in the work and doing the things. He talks about being at rock bottom, gun in his mouth. Okay. Didn't think that life would ever get any better. So if you're struggling with your mental health, if you just want to hear a story of somebody else who went through it, this is a great, great podcast. You should check it out. It's good. And I'm just trying to encourage you, just as he would try to encourage you, that it gets better. There's work involved. It's very challenging. It's very difficult, but it does indeed get better. So now back to the game. Who are we talking about? We're talking about Patricia. We're talking about Hellcat, Patsy Walker. So as the comic goes, she does indeed succumb to the voices. These demonic entities in this case. She commits suicide and ends up in hell. So what do you do in hell? Well, I guess you fight people, right? That's what so she's down there just fighting people like Gladiator. I guess getting better at her fighting skills. Hawkeye's wife had passed away. He's trying to get her back. So he goes through this ritual to try to get his wife back, and accidentally they pull out Patsy instead of Hawkeye's wife, Mockingbird. So then Hellcat's back. So she's been training, so she's a better fighter. She's got the psionic abilities. And apparently she was hanging out in hell. She's got some hell-based powers to use. I don't want to call them mental constructs. Kind of think about a Green Lantern type thing, sort of, so with weapons and things like that, claws. And she can form, I don't know what you'd call it, Hellfire or whatever, to do some of that. Okay. So again, it's a character that I'm not super comfortable with. I get the heroic premise, right? There's dark times, you can bounce back, right? That's the premise. That's the lesson. That's because with all the characters and storylines, right? This is stuff that's in reality ripped from the headlines, right? The way they make the characters and stories relatable is there's things that people have experienced. So in this case, you have someone who goes through grief, lows, and they bounce back. That is an excellent storyline. You want to support that. But I'm just not down with the theming of the character, right? It just makes me uncomfortable in that regard. So what other characters have we seen in Marvel Strike Force? We keep looking. We went down here. We got, in addition to Infestation, we got the Secret Warriors. Secret Warriors, and we have the Phantom Rider, right? So we got the Phantom Rider. So I was thinking that this individual is a Ghost Rider. All right. Ghost Riders, there's the backstory on them is very confusing. Marvel seems to be trying to pin them initially Ghost Riders. The spirit of vengeance are demons controlled by Mephisto. People would make a deal with the devil and get some power. Okay, Marvel they kind of float in and out of that perhaps they're the finger of God, perhaps there's something else, and they're trying to, right? They understand the gravity of that type of character that it's going to draw and make, right? There's a line there, and that's why we're talking about today. There's a line that they're either going to make people happy, and at the same time, they're going to alienate a lot of people. So depending on how you position it, there's a group of people that's going to enjoy it and a group of people that's not. It appears that this individual, the Phantom Rider, is not a Ghost Rider in that sense. He's a Ghost Rider in the sense that he is a ghost. He died, and now his spirit kind of inhabits his successors and gives them power. But this individual right here, if I still have it, this individual right here, see if I can find it. Grab switch right quick again. It was a Big Positive Geek. He highlighted something that was shared by the devs and whatnot. So it was this right here. So there's Path Daddy saying that this character is Carter Slade. Okay. So that might be important. Because again, he is a ghost. He died, and he kind of inhabits his members of his family, their successors. But Carter Slade is the original. That might make a difference to you. Carter Slade is the original. So depending on how your conscience moves you with that, he's not a ghost at that point, right? He's just a dude on a horse. He doesn't even really, I don't think he really has any supernatural powers. He's just literally he's like Zorro, not Zorro, yeah, the Lone Ranger. So he's a dude on a horse for the most part, with guns, wild, wild west, lassos, right? There's more to it than that, but essentially that version of the character is the original. So he's not a ghost. He's not an apparition. He's the regular dude. But again, if you want to see it a different way, as he possesses his relatives in the future, gives them superpowers. But if it's Carter Slade, if we're saying that's the dude, then he's the original. Okay. So again, perhaps your conscience will allow you to do that. I'm just going to stay away because that's me. The theme continues, right? The theme continues. Hellfire Club. Now, again, when it was announced, remember we had the poll. When it was announced, we got to vote for the team, and our options were Azazel, who won, Selene, who's the Black Queen, and Sauron. So I already kind of saw the writing on the wall. I was expecting this team actually to come out about now, the October. I thought this was maybe going to be the October thing. I was nervous about who was going to be on the team because it looked like through the vote, the characters that we had to pick from, they were definitely leaning into the supernatural side. Now, the Hellfire Club is, again, their roster has changed a lot over the years. They got different, right, groupings of characters. So there's different themes of how you want to promote things. And Marvel itself, right? Marvel, how about this? Let's back it up even further. Hellfire Club is actually a real life thing. So you can look that up. It's a real life thing. Think of it maybe as what people might say, like it's a gentleman's club, right? A gentleman's club. All right. So it's that concept, it's that mindset that people should be able to go somewhere and do stuff that they want to do, even if it's, looked down on by society and unsavory. And especially if you got cash money, right? There seems to be sometimes people who can bend and break rules. And so this is a real thing. They called them the Hellfire Club. Okay. The way Marvel is taking it, generally speaking, we're talking about Marvel Comics. The way Marvel Comics generally takes it is that there's the Hellfire Club is a real thing. And everybody, all the rich and famous are invited. Tony Stark has been there. Warren Worthington's been there, right? All these wealthy individuals have been at some point in time to the Hellfire Club. You can smooze, you can talk to other people who are prominent, wealthy, and stuff like that. But there is also what they call the inner circle. And the inner circle is the leadership of the Hellfire Club. And those individuals, again, are going to be of the wealthy. And they're trying to manipulate things on the world scene. That's just what the theme is. Right? You get some rich and powerful cats who are trying to work together to manipulate things on the world scene in their favor. That's just the general concept of the Hellfire Club. Okay. And at some point, things got a little weird. Sebastian Shaw took over and he made it more of a mutant thing. And he's using the organization in the interest of mutants to try to control things on the world scene. Okay. This version of the Hellfire Club obviously is leaning more into the supernatural, as we would have saw. If it would have been Selene, the Black Queen, Selene is kind of an energy vampire. She's one of the first mutants. She's basically seen to be like a witch, a sorceress, a vampire, and she's able to absorb the life energy of people, and thus, in a sense, is generally speaking thought to be immortal. As long as she absorbs life essence, she lives. Zazel here's the one who won the vote. So Zazel, I started building the characters, and again, it's kind of was poking the contents a little bit. So maybe I made a mistake in doing that. I was on this is again the baby account, but on my main account, I was in a much more competitive alliance. You want to compete at the highest level, raids are important. So my decision, if I was not going to build, I was going to be bringing the rest of the alliance down. but the raids have changed, right? So now you have that difficulty selector. So I could skip the team and just use an older team, knowing that I'm costing only myself resources and not the alliance. The thing about Azazel is, again, well, he's a mutant, right? He's just a mutant. There's nothing wrong with Azazel, but his character just leans very strongly into the demonic. Okay. The main storyline of his character is that him and there's other mutants that are like him, that are like demons that somehow got banished to this hell dimension. They can't get out. Azazel can get out because of his ability, his teleportation ability, but he's only able to get out for a short period of time. So, like the handsome devil, right? That's the storyline he's playing into. The handsome devil, he seduces women, makes babies with the intent of it's child sacrifice. He's going to go through this ritual, child sacrifice his children to bridge, right? Break the spell or bridge the gap between wherever he is and the regular universe. So him and these other guys that are like him that are there can get out. That's his main storyline, right? That's how he's tied to Nightcrawler. Right? I know there's some retcon as to whether or not Azazel is not right now considered to be Nightcrawler's father in the comics. Kind of retcon that. It was Mystique posing as Azazel, but still he has his genes because Nightcrawler was caught up in that. He was a kid. They tried to sacrifice him through the ritual. Okay. And then that his character gets killed. He's brought back during the Krakoan era so they could take his character in any direction, but they did not. They kept him in the same thing. He now jumps between other hellish dimensions. He pretends to be Satan, makes deals with people. That was his jam. They could have changed him when they brought him back. They chose not to. So it just made me feel uneasy. But I don't know if you're getting here. There's a theme. This is a lot of teams in a short period of time, and they all have a similar theme to them. Madeline Pryor. So Maddie, I don't think so. In the description here, let's look. Well, who is Madeline Pryor? A lovelorn clone of Jean Grey. Madeline Pryor uses her superior psychic powers and sorcery to rain fury down on her opponents. All right, so I don't know if you know the story of Madeline Pryor. We'll sum it up as quickly as possible. Mr. Sinister recognizes that a child born of Jean Grey and Scott Summers, that Summers bloodline, to be honest, can make probably one of the most powerful mutants ever to exist. The only person who's keeping Mr. Sinister in check, the only dude who can really fight against him that he sees as a threat is Apocalypse. And Mr. Sinister knows that he's not strong enough to deal with Apocalypse. So he figures, hey, if I can create this super strong mutant, and if he's on my side, I can use that individual to deal with Apocalypse, and then I would be the number one big dog, right? So we know that Mr. Sinister is technically not a mutant, but right, he was in Krakoa, so he's kind of considered to be a mutant. He's able to use the gates, so he's considered to be a mutant. Okay, writers change stuff all the time. Tomorrow maybe he won't be. During the Krakoan series, he is. So Phoenix gets killed, right? The Dark Phoenix saga happens and Phoenix supposedly dies. So he's like, man, how am I going to do this? How am I going to get this baby if Jean Grey's gone? So we cloned Jean Grey, named her Madeline Pryor. Madeline Pryor does not have any powers. Madeline Pryor did not have any powers. And in fact, he made the clone. The clone wasn't even alive. He couldn't get the clone to be alive. But when the Dark Phoenix event happened, a piece of the Phoenix came out looking for Jean. Can't find her because she's dead, but not dead, right? Because it's comics. Finds Madeline, inhabits her body. Madeline has life. Madeline does not have any powers. Sinister puts her out in the world, hanging out with like some of Scott's grandparents or something like that. Scott goes to visit the grandparents. This lady looks a lot like Jean. They fall in love, get married, have a baby. Nathan Summers, right? Madeline Pryor does not have any powers. We want to make that clear. So then what's the storyline that happens? Cyclops, this isn't really Jean Grey. He was in love. He was infatuated with her because she reminded him of Jean, but he doesn't really love her because it's not her. She doesn't have any memories. They don't have any shared experiences. They don't have any of that. So he starts to drift away from her, right? So there's that marital separation. He's out working, being an X-Man. He's not taking care of his kid, little baby Nathan Summers, young Cable. So that's a storyline that's going on. And so what happens? Madeline Pryor starts getting into depression, right? So we're talking about postpartum depression. We're talking about stuff like that. The woman, she's stuck at home with the kid, nothing to do, right? They say it takes a village to raise a child. There's a reason why they say that. If she's just stuck at home with the kid all the time, that's a depressing situation. She's not working. She don't have no powers. She's not an X-Man. She's not out going on missions. Cyclops is out doing all that. She feels abandoned. And then, of course, because this is comics, what starts happening? Well, these demons start speaking to her as she's low and depressed. So again, this is just another trigger warning. Mental health is important. Make sure I'm not a medical professional. Make sure you are in touch with your doctor. Follow the plan. If the doctor says that you need to be exercising, you need to eat a certain way, you might need to stay away from certain people. Substances, you got to follow that plan. That's what's going to get you good. That's what's going to get you strong. So these demons are speaking to Madeline. Sinister takes the baby. Now she's really depressed. And basically they say, hey, these demons, hey, look, listen, we want to come through from our side to your side. They're these limbo. You've heard of limbo. There's these limbo demons. Hey, we want to come over there where you're at. We need you to help bridge the gap. If you help us bridge that gap, we will give you power to take revenge on the enemies. We will make you one of the strongest things on the planet. So again, Madeline Pryor has no powers. Technically, like it says here, she's a mutant, but we have to understand that, right? If you looked at the storyline, they couldn't decide whether she was a human or a mutant. They were trying to figure that out. She didn't have any powers. She accepted the deal. So these demons are the ones that gave her powers. And she became, Madeline Pryor, the Goblin Queen. And that set off the Inferno event in Marvel Comics. So that was condensed. If you saw X-Men 97, they condensed that into an hour, 30 minutes. But that was a huge Infinity Gauntlet storyline in Marvel Comics called the Inferno event. And they gave her the power. She became Madeline Pryor, the Goblin Queen. Same deal. She disappeared or died, or we're not sure. She came back in Krakoa, and she was the same type of individual. She could have been a hero, so to speak, but she stepped right back into the limbo thing, started converting portions of the area where she lived into limbo, bringing demons out, right? So that's Madeline Pryor. And she, again, was selected to be on this team. So I should have made a different decision at that time, but I did not. And then, of course, as we go further, we have the Accursed team. Now, the thing that was surprising about the Accursed team is the timing, right? Like I was expecting something like this once again to come out about this time of year. And so as we see all these teams stacking in a row, this is what the issue is. Right? This is why I'm feeling the way I'm feeling. And maybe some of you are feeling that way as well. So we got Hellfire. Who's Hellfire? He's Daken, who got killed, who makes a deal with Mephisto. Right? I think he gets a spirit of vengeance, like the Ghost Rider. And he's back. Right? It's just not for me, right? After being killed, well, I guess this will break it down a little different. After being killed by Sabretooth and revived by the demon Baragul, Daken harnesses, the power of the spirit of vengeance, exposing his enemies with piercing attacks. Yeah, so he is a spirit of vengeance. So again, making that deal with the devil for more power. What about, I should have just scrolled over. Who else do we got? We got the Hood. His backstory that explains it pretty good here. Parker Robbins dons a demonic cloak and boots becoming the Hood, whose magical bullets prevent his heroic enemies from using their abilities and gaining positive status effects. So Mr. Parker Robbins, the Hood, his gear is of demonic origin, his boots and his cloak. In Marvel Comics, essentially what's happened, he ambushed a guy, ended up being a demon. He took his stuff. He's a criminal. He's a low level thug. But obviously, since he gets superpowers from the gear, the demonic gear, he's able to start carving out his own criminal underworld, become a shot caller, as you would say, in that landscape. In the comics, he had one of the Infinity Stones. I can't remember which one. I want to say it was the red one, I think. He had one of the Infinity Stones as well. So because I think, this is just my opinion, of the retcon with the MCU, that you have to be of some type of, superpower, ultra power type individual, like Thanos level type cat, to hold the stone. They kind of retconned it and say, okay, well, recent times he lost his power, but what does he do to get his powers back? He makes a deal with the devil. He makes a deal with Mephisto to get his powers back. So that's how he exists right now, presently, in Marvel Comics. Who else was on that team? Satana is on that team. Who is Satana? Well, she says she's a half human, half demon. Uses her hellspawn powers to steal the health of targets, redistributing to herself and her allies. Does that sound familiar? She's a half human, half demon. Who's her father? Well, it's obviously Satan, the devil. She's the sister of Damon Hellstrom. Okay? She's Damon Hellstrom's sister. She's obviously a bad guy. She's a villain. And she's what you call a succubus. Right? Maybe we've heard that term. Succubus, incubus. There's a male version, female version. And what is the lore behind characters like that? Again, what's the storyline behind characters like that? Well, essentially, have you ever woken up and you couldn't move, right? You were sleeping, you kind of were startled, awake. Maybe your arms wouldn't move. Maybe your body didn't move initially. You felt kind of paralyzed for a second. So the lore on that is that it's these demons, succubus or incubus, that was basically assaulting you sexually while you were asleep. They were having their way with you while you were sleeping, and they were holding you down, and that's why you couldn't move. Okay, so that's the lore on where those type of characters come from. Now, am I saying I believe that? That's not what I'm saying. Do I understand why individuals would come up with ideas like that? Yeah, because you need a way to talk to your children, right? As they get to puberty, you got to start talking about wet dreams and stuff like that. And you need to also then coach them on purity of mind and thought, because that's important. Just like we have those talks with our children today. You have the talk. You shouldn't have, in my opinion, you don't have the talk with your kid. You need to be talking to them when they're small and expand that knowledge as they grow. Because if you don't tell them, especially in today's world that's connected to the internet, if you don't tell them, somebody's going to tell them, man. So you'd much rather get your version out there than somebody else's. So why am I making this episode today? Because if we just look at, again, we're talking about the compression of teams. We got Brimstone. Depending on how you feel about it, we got Secret Warriors, Hellfire Club, Accursed. That's 4 teams in a very short period of time that all seem to have this demonic flavor. And I'm not asking Marvel Strike Force to do anything. I'm not asking them to change anything. I'm not, it's their game. They do what they want. I just know that content like that is strong and it's polarizing, and it makes some people uncomfortable. There's going to be some of that, right? These are all Marvel characters. They come from Marvel Comics. So there's going to be some of that. My concern is just that there's a lot of it in a very short period of time. And the type of individuals that might reflect, maybe if you feel the way I feel, individuals like us, we're not going to, generally speaking, make a big fuss. We're not going to show up in the DMs because, right, it's everybody's personal stuff. but you're just slowly, right? Every time it happens, it's like getting hit with a hammer. And that's why I'm making the video, because it's a lot in a short period of time. And it just causes people to kind of just disappear by attrition. You're not going to make a lot of fuss. You're just going to kind of, hey, just it's just not for me, and go do something else. I personally think that that's a big reason why what's it called? Marvel. What was that game? I don't remember the name of the game now. It was like an MMO. It was a mobile game. It was an MMO for Marvel. Um, Man, they spent a lot of money on that game. They spent a lot of money on that game, and the game ultimately failed. What was it called? If you know, put it in the chat. I can't remember. But ultimately, it failed. It's no longer a game anymore. And I think personally, part of the reason for that is the first expansion. First expansion for that game, you had to go into the dark dimension, and the individuals, the factions there were Hela, Dormammu, Mephisto. And that's where obviously where the highest levels of guys were. That's where you had to go to farm your gear every day. That's where, you're going to have your new epic bosses and epic battles to get the newest gear, which is what you need to advance. And it's an expansion. We don't know how long, right? It's going to be there till the next expansion. So if it's 6 months, right? People don't want to, people aren't going to do that for 6 months that don't like that theme. They're not going to log in every day. So they lost, I guarantee you, they lost membership due to attrition that way. And I'm not saying not to have such characters and whatnot in the game, but this is what I'm saying is that repeated exposure, there's people that don't like that. Let me illustrate it a different way. So there's such thing as cartoon violence, right? So there's cartoon violence. And so maybe as a family, you'll sit down and watch a cartoon, Shrek or something like that, and Shrek's punching people in the face. That's violence. I get it. But it's cartoon violence. So maybe you're acceptable to that. And then as we turn that dial up and you start getting into action movies and stuff like that, maybe with your older kids, you're still okay with it, right? And it's still experience you can share. But at some point, right, you can turn that dial up to graphic violence. You can turn that up to the point where other adults, right, as adults, you're in there and uncomfortable with what you're looking at. Some people are fine with it. But the farther you turn that dial up, you push away a couple more and a couple more and a couple more people, right? Same thing with like romantic comedies, right? So it's romance comedy, right? So there's some of those you can sit down and watch as a family. There's jokes and it's a love story and all that, and it's it's whatever. There's some of those that are wholesome and family friendly, but you can same thing. You can ratchet that up so that the romance starts to get a little more graphic, right? Sexual situations. You could dial it up. You might even get into what people might question: is this pornography? And at some point, some people might not be bothered, but at some point, right? You have other adults that are just like, this just isn't, you're not into that. I'm not going to sit here and watch this with another, right? Like, that's what it is. So that's all I'm saying when it comes to these items in Marvel Strike Force. I'm not telling them to change. I'm not telling them not to put them in there. These are Marvel characters. Yeah, there's people that enjoy these type of characters and enjoy this type of content, and they need to be taken care of as well. They need to be taken care of as well. My concern just is when we turn the dial, right? We're turning the dial up, and there's not like recovery time. It doesn't bounce back the other way. It's just slowly going in this direction. And that's going to slowly cause people to be like, that's not for me. Like I'm skipping about 4 teams ish, right? That's going to have effect on my account. I'll be okay. It's just a video game. It's fine. But I'm skipping about 4 teams ish. I'm not going to perform as well as I want to in Battle World. That's my decision. That's my choice. I'm not blaming the company. It is what it is. But I know there's other people out there that feel the way I do. So what other type of characters could come to the game? See, this is a conspiracy theory on my part. I do not know this to be true. This is a conspiracy theory on my part, but I think the reset at Marvel proper over at Disney, right? Kevin Feige got back a lot of creative control. They put the brakes on a lot of projects and a lot of things. And I think they want to jump off the next section of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And so maybe they're holding and pausing. They're telling people to hold up on certain types of things. All right. That's my guess. So when it comes to things like the X-Men, what the Avengers are going to look like, they're kind of telling people just to hold on. Right now in the comic books, the X-Men storyline, they have this thing called the Age of Revelation. So it's another big giant what if style story arc. So I think they're basically just saying, hey, we don't want you to mess with the X-Men canon wise right now. So we're going to do this storyline, dig deep into some stuff that we're ultimately going to throw away. It's not going to be canon. It's going to be canon, but not affecting the new universe. It's my opinion. But there's some other characters and stuff that we haven't seen yet in the game. So we think about like the New Warriors. I don't know if the New Warriors are in the game, but that's not the New Warriors that I grew up with, right? There's different versions like every team. So we got Night Thrasher, we got Justice, we got Speedball. I'd like to see them in the game. Someone in the community commented on a video recently and said, well, what about Spike from the X-Men Evolution cartoon? That's a deep cut right there. I didn't think about that. I'm like, man, I had to go look that dude up. I'm like, I don't know who this cat is. He's from the cartoon. That was pretty dope. I thought that was awesome. Right. So there's some cool deep cuts and things like that. I don't know if is that a thing? Could you have a X-Men 97? Like we have, Fantastic Four MCU. Could there be X-Men 97 basic team? Like Cyclops, Jean Grey, Storm? I don't know. I'm not sure. X Factor, we got some of those in the game, but there are some other members of X Factor that we definitely don't have. A strong guy was a dude. I want to say random, but I think he's a bad guy. I think random's a bad guy. I had some other ideas in mind. The X-Man, right? They could use some of the characters from his. So he's basically Nate Gray. He's Cable. If he didn't have, so Cable has, he's like that cyborg. He's got this technovirus, and that really severely limits his power because he's trying to keep control of that virus. So if that never happened, there's this version of him called the X-Man, who is just hyper strong dude. He comes from an alternate universe. So there's some characters and things that they could bring in from that as well. Iron Man type stuff. There's a lot of Iron Man villains that we haven't seen. Right. So there's like Stingray, Titanium Man. There's always different versions of the Iron Man armor, right? That they're made for a certain purpose. So there's Hulkbuster armor. There's all kind of Buster, right? He makes armor stuff for all that. So some of that stuff could be adapted. Spider-Man. There's always foes of Spider-Man. There's a lot foes of Spider-Man. Oh, that could come to the game. There's a dude named Cardiac. He's pretty dope. Whisper Impulse. That's a deep cut. Look that up. The Inheritors. I'm not sure how I feel about that, but the Inheritors are very strong Spider-Man enemies. Oh, they could come to the game. So there's a lot, man. There's a lot. If the comics are getting back to the Inhumans, then Maximus, right? Vulcan, the other Summers brother, the brother of Havoc and Cyclops, Vulcan, with the Shi'ar, right? Again, some of the Shi'ar Imperial Guard. There's a lot of ways we could still go with this. So I just like to hear, what are some characters that maybe you haven't seen, some stuff that you'd like to see come to the game? Again, I'm happy Age of Annihilus. Disappointed maybe with some of the presentation. But hey, there's still 6 months, right? In my opinion, there's probably another 3-ish months when we get our next legendary character, when a great one, Wayne Gretzky, right? Because the guy's holding a hockey stick. So when the great one, when Wayne Gretzky, the next legendary character comes to the game, that'll be another 3-ish months. And then they have to do the Annihilus unlock. So we'll just assume about 3-ish months there. So maybe about 6-ish months. And that's usually how far they plan out. So who knows? Who knows what other teams are coming? I'm still excited every month. I'm excited to see what teams are coming, what characters. I'm a huge comic book fan. That's my background. I know that many of you are MCU fans, and that's your background. There's a lot of characters in both of those that we still haven't seen. So if there's something that you're looking for, throw it in the chat. And again, just want to point out, if you're feeling this way, if you're feeling the same way as I am, it's okay, man. It's all right. You got to make the decision on what you got to do. I'm not telling people to quit playing the game. I'm not telling people to stop spending money on do that. I'm going to keep playing. I'm going to keep playing. I just know that I'm not going to get everything that everybody else has at that same time. And as always, if you're struggling with life, right? This stuff is important. If you're struggling with your mental health, take steps. Go to see the doc. Okay. Wait a minute. We got a good, that's a good pick right there. Hold on. We got Jim Zingo. That's a great pick. Thunderbolts MCU. So a different team, I think he's saying, than what we have in the game, but make them Thunderbolts MCU. So that would include like Helena, Great Guardian, such. I think that's what we're saying. That sounds dope. Starjammers. Yeah, man. We have Starjammers in the game, but there's other versions of Starjammers and there's other Starjammers that we haven't seen yet. There's other people that were on the Starjammers team that we haven't seen yet. Cannonball. Cannonball's legit. Cannonball's legit. He could be a Starjammer. They could make a different version of, he's been a lot of teams. X-Force, I think. He was on X-Force. New Mutants, right? That's one. That's one that was on my mind. New Mutants, right? There's a lot of characters that we haven't seen yet. Cannonball would be awesome, though. I agree with that 100%. 100%. And just want to give a shout out once again to the young men, right? We got to enhance our young women in the community, but I want to give a shout out to the young men while we're here talking, right? This is going to sound horrible. What passes for men right now is not good. It's not good. So I'm just encouraging you as a young man to stay in there. Make sure you're eating right. Make sure you're getting some exercise, and make sure you're training your mental to push and to have to do hard things. Because a man, you're gonna have to do it, bro. Life's hard. That's just what it is. As a man, you got to do it. So train yourself to do hard things. Think through problems. We have physicality and strength for a reason. It's not for punching people in the face. It's not what it is. Right? You got to use that to better yourself. At some point, better your family. You're going to have to work hard to make that happen. That's just what it is. So I'm going to encourage you to take some time out to do that. Make sure you're getting some exercise in. Make sure you're doing something that's difficult. Make sure you're trying to figure out a way to work through problems. Keeping that mind intact. Don't let it get clouded, right? So substances, don't let that stuff cloud your judgment, right? We need you intact and ready to take on the day. Your family needs you. The future needs you, bro. It's bad out here, man. The future needs you. So as young men, I always want to encourage you to keep moving forward. So let me know in the comments if you got teams, if you agree or you disagree. It's all good. We're going to keep having fun. Take care of yourself. Take care of your family, man. Peace out.